Hello. Hello. Let me see. Let me get this on the screen, probably. But is this loud enough? Am I talking loud? I feel like I don't know. Something is weird. I guess I'm kind of talking over the music, but I don't know. I like this. Yes. Talking. That seems fine. Where is it? Looking for a picture that will help me try to make sense of things. Today I want to talk about a lot of things, basically the entire world, how all the powers that are within it, that are prevalent now, basically came into being, which is something I've all written out before, but I feel like it's not that well connected yet, and I feel like I can do better, or I can make, well, just better lore for it, but I'm gonna have to delete some things, replace some things, fix some things. I'll see how it goes. I think the best way to do it is just to start talking about things, and hopefully eventually it will make sense. That's how I usually do it anyway. And then after the stream I try to write it down and try to remember the most important things, so I don't forget it. Where is it? I guess I can just get it from Discord if I can't find it. There we go. Oh, that's a bit big, but it is the one that I want. Should I just put this in my Illustrator instead? I feel like that will make things a bit easier, so I can actually annotate on it and stuff. Can I just paste that, or I guess I need to open it? It's just open. Can I just drag that in here? Does that work? Yes. Okay, that's better. And we zoom in. That should work. So, I think everything is visible now. So I think we start... Wait, let me take my shoes off. We start at the beginning, which is Helia, which is my god. Let's see if I should... maybe for like some extra information, if there are new people joining, I can always put my god. Can I just copy this? Copy. Yeah, that works. I'll just put that. Well, I can always make it bigger if people ask. Fuck. Okay, so where are we starting? Where am I going? I think I'm just gonna start with the gods and then see if there's any things in there that I want to add. I think that's the beginning where everything comes from, and then from there I kind of just want to write down more details and see how it all kind of blends together. So yeah, I will start the story, I think. But I need to get my notes since it's been a long time since I wrote this. I don't know if I like that. I wrote before, gods get their energy and power through willpower and love and pure life power. Although the system is skewed since they control all the love and willpower, since they are the ones creating new souls. I feel like it's a bit vague and I can specify that a bit further. Starting with basically how, I think an interesting, I figured out where the gods, like how they kind of came into existence and why, but I haven't figured out why they, or how they ended up in these specific aspects, unless by saying, oh, these aspects are just a part of the life power that is gifted to them, and that's just like how the only way that like life works, which makes sense, I guess, in a way. Well, it makes sense as in, so there's the beginning, which is, what is the beginning? I don't remember all of this. Did I write? Oh, probably it's in history, not in religion. History. History. Yes. Okay, so how it all started on this, so we're talking about this planet, this world that all the players exist in at this time as well. Is the first thing that happened was, well, the existence of power. Power which created almost, well, the power which created both the world itself, like almost like a Big Bang type scenario where there was just this explosion of life and power that created in its wake. Let me think about that actually, how that exactly works with everything that happened before it. I like the idea of this Big Bang-like effect that creates basically life and power separately in my world. But I'm thinking how that fits in with the actual powers that exist in the world. Okay, I think I got. Wait, I need to go to another history. Didn't I write like an ancient history note? Yes, here we go. Control of faith. Okay. And such the Big Bang, power and life. A gift by chaos is followed by the gift of love by faith. And such the big bang of power and life. A gift by chaos is followed by the gift of love by faith. They infuse together and form Helia. This is what I wrote before when also the music stopped. I need my insanity music back. Where is it? There we go. This is better. So we have universe. Without going into too many other things, there are two powers within the universe, which is the power that creates structure and a power that creates chaos, or life is another way to say it, which is basically chaotic life, as in non-structured life, life that has free will, basically. So the structured life creates the planet that our players are on right now, which is called, which has a name, it doesn't matter. Within the planet, well, basically within this big bang of creation, which is made by these two entities, exists this planet, which both exists of structure and chaos. Which the structure part is the planet itself, and the chaos within it are these creatures that are alive, but not necessarily have a conscience that is anywhere similar to what humans would have, or what any like other creatures would have. They don't have the same goals or structure that is kind of present inside our mind, since they are creatures of pure chaotic energy, almost, so to speak, of pure power. They don't really have any ambitions that balance them out. They just lust for infinite power, and that kind of continued for millions of years, I think, at least. Basically, kind of how evolution went. It's almost, you can imagine it like these orbs of power that just floated around and slowly accumulated more and more from both the planet, the environment, anything they could find, magic, all that kind of stuff. Slowly build it up until eventually these creatures were created, which are dragons. Because in my world there's no dragon plane, there's no like a lot of dragons. The only dragons that were, or at least true dragons that were ever created, were these first dragons that were basically creatures of pure power that roamed the planet. However, as almost like a defense system or a counterbalance, there was also a creature of structure that was created along with the planet. Creatures of structure would be like angels who might have their own minds but are still obligated to follow the wills of, well, basically a higher being, and don't really have free will in the end because they are bound to follow a structure within their brain. So also different from humans and things like that. So we have this creature of structure that is created, who would eventually become Helia, but for now is just an entity like the others. Let me see what I wrote after that. fuse together. So I'm already changing some things. I'm thinking, because it's kind of weird how I wrote some of these things. Big bang of life and power created beings of pure power, doing nothing but grow more powerful with each year forever. Similar, how there was the big bang of power, and only how there was the big bang in the real world, and only after that there was helium. First there was power, and only after that there was Helia, which makes sense for her name. She is the counter effect to the power. She's the universe basically balancing itself out for the sheer amount of chaos or power or life that is present upon this planet. So I think, because then in my notes I write something else about another variable being added, but I feel like there's enough to go of just having these two counteracting things. Like there doesn't need to be another variable in the mix, I think, to make things interesting for the lore. So I think I'm just gonna delete this. Love every action as a reaction to the power of creation. Love or will for life. It's the god Helia. Okay, because of her good earthed nature as the embodiment of love, she gave her own life to create a world for these creatures. Okay, so I like this part. So basically okay, wait, let me write this down. The first of the creatures are born like a big bang created the universe in our world. A big bang of life and power created beings of pure power. Dragons. The first lived for. I think I delete all this. I think another important part is each other forever. The planet itself was also created, similar to the Big Bang in real life. However, this is a lifeless planet. Without anything on it, really. Okay, that makes sense. So we have a lifeless planet, and we have chaotic creatures that are made of pure power. Then, like how there was the Big Bang, and then there was helium, then in my world there was the Big Bang, and then there was the goddess named Helia, which is more like a... let me think about this. Because there's two options here. Either she was created intentionally by the universe, as I said, correcting itself, or it was a side effect that wasn't really expected, which could have two very different outcomes in general. Because I think, it's important that... Let me think. Because Helia is not the goddess of fate, or the goddess that controls the universe. She's not like the mother of all goddesses, of all gods, or anything like that. So I think it would actually make more sense if she is a side effect and not necessarily a creation of the universe trying to counterbalance this chaos that is going on. Which would make sense, I think, because then the counterbalance is just the containment of this planet, of every planet really, and of it in the end of the introduction of well, fuck. See, this is why I needed to fix it, because it doesn't make any sense yet. Let me just read what I wrote before. Because of her good-earthed nature, as the embodiment... Wait, I think I... Okay, I think I just had an idea. Okay, wait, let me write this down real quick before I say it. This might make everything a lot clearer. Let me go to ancient history. I think this doesn't make any sense. Being the creator of things and faith being the controller of faith. I think those two are enough. This planet is in faith refers to opposing beings. Chaos being the creature of things and faith being a controller. The creator of things and faith being the controller of their faith, basically living creatures' faith, which makes sense. Let me think. What was I gonna say? Okay, so their eternal fight eventually creates. Sorry, I'm just writing something. It is Illuminati. You don't know how hard my brain is melting right now. The eternal fight eventually creates a Big Bang-like effect. Explosion of chaos and fate that fills the universe. Okay. And the celestials, but chaos from what? Okay. Shall fight. It creates a Big Bang, an explosion of chaos and fate that fills the universe and breaks apart these celestials. Or later. These later become planets. Okay, that makes sense. So basically you have these two opposing forces within the universe, kind of always in an eternal struggle with each other, kind of like yin and yang. Eventually this comes to a breaking point where they almost form together and the Big Bang happens, which destroys some things, makes some things happen that don't really matter for this lore, and eventually results in the creation of, well, the universe, basically. Then the focus on the planet. Within the planet itself, there are forces of both chaos and faith, or yin and yang, entering. The planet itself is not... Let me think. Okay, for many years, these two entities upon the planet remain separated, with the planet itself absorbing most of the faith, or most of the faith is the best way to say it. And then the creatures, or the chaos, over time becoming creatures, basically absorbing power from where it can and using that power like magic to form itself in ways that gives it physical power, turning into dragons, which will turn into let me think. Because I'm with it until there, and then I'm confused. Wait, I'm gonna think for a bit. I need to go to the... Oh, hey, how are you? Sweet Poison 02. I'm currently losing my mind, trying to fix my lore. It's going great. With that I mean I've been stuck on the first paragraph for like 30 minutes already, but it's okay. How is your day, Sweet Poison 02? Maybe your presence will help me figure things out. So I think there's two options right now. So we have the planet, which is kind of like this celestial being, which isn't really alive, but not really dead either. And then we have this other power, which is basically just, well, pure power personified as, well, at this point probably not yet formed into anything specific, but which would later become the source of creatures like dragons and stuff like that. And you have these two opposing forces that do something that eventually forms Helia, which is an unintended side effect from these things. Because the gods are not gods over the entire universe, they're specific to this planet, and they are basically guardians. What is their job? Why do they exist? Do they exist by accident, or do they have a reason? This is a lot harder than I thought. So there's power. After that there was Helia. Which creates nature, which create creatures of faith. However, she also allows someone else to create creatures of chaos, which means they probably don't get along. Ay, ay, ay. What if this... Okay, I think that could work. Just thought of something else. Becomes conscious. So friend. Secret everything is not. But it still doesn't make any sense, cause... Or does it? Wait, did I write this down somewhere already? Saw the prison of fate, he had been biding his time. Wait, I'm gonna take a break real quick, I need to go to the toilet and I'll think on that as well. I am back. And I had a think. I think I figured it out. I hope. At least the most important part. Oh, Phantom, if you're here. Okay, that's a lie as well. There will never be cat girls in the lore. I have already confirmed that. If you want cat girls in the lore, you need to pay more attention to it anyway. So you can find a loophole. Okay. Wait, Phantom said he maybe wants to play some Ripples of Madness at 4:30, which is +8. 4 + 8 is 12, so in an hour and a half, I guess. That's still pretty long though. In this stream here, I am trying not to lose my mind while I try to fix lore that I wrote a year ago and already forgot about it. But it needs to be fixed anyway. That's basically what's happening. But also a story time. Hopefully, once I figure it out, I can tell the actual story of what happens. But I need to figure it out first. I feel like that's usually the structure of my lore streams, where I'm confused for half an hour and then can finally talk for an hour. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk through it and see if it makes sense. We have okay, good one, Light. We have existence, which occurred in some way that doesn't matter. That lore is not important right now. However, we do know that this kind of forms or creates kind of aspects or celestials, whatever you want to call it, basically universal creatures that are not really alive in the same way you and I are. They don't think or have any goals or anything like that. They just kind of exist within the universe. And it is one of those that we will focus on today, whose name is not known. Eventually, as the universe continues, there is a conflict between the two main powers within it, which is basically order and chaos, or yin and yang, or anything you can put in those replacements. Just basically structure, a universe of structure, things like celestial beings, and a universe of chaos, which is basically things that not necessarily seek to keep the universe intact, but more maybe seek to destroy it, or seek to just find things for their own benefit. Basically counterproductive counterproductive force that kind of just goes against this idea of structure in the world. These yin and yang like beings eventually this war between them, or this conflict between them, eventually reaches a climax, which results in what we in real life would call the Big Bang. What in my world, I don't know, I don't have a name for it, but anyway, this basically explosion of power of both chaos and faith kind of goes in all directions of the universe, and also on its way destroys the celestials that once guarded it, and they are flung across the universe breaking into many different parts, and with the laws of gravity and all that, eventually forming into balls, which turn into planets, or some of them at least. Of course, not everything. I know in real life it works different, but you can't make every fact the same as scientific things in real life, and I think this is close enough. You can always make up some more fantasy things why they happen to turn into balls, similarly how it happens in real life. I don't think it's that important to worry about. But anyway, it is one of these parts of a celestial that eventually becomes the planet that my players find themselves on now. This celestial part, of course, is basically the planet itself, and is basically a structure of pure fate, or what will later become divine power. However, just as this Big Bang flung what is it called? Fate into the universe, so did it fling chaos, or so did it bring chaos across it. And eventually this chaos or power would form itself into creatures as well. Just by itself, just by the merits that these creatures or this energy basically seeks power wherever it goes. And this power would form into the first dragons, which are basically beings of pure power. And 8 of these, and 7 of these would be created on the planet that the players are on right now. Eventually, these beings grow so strong that they seek to destroy the planet itself. In a hunger for power, they wish to consume the planet on which they stand. In doing so, however, they accidentally consume the essence of the planet, and each of these dragons basically inherit a part which made up the structure, which made up the fate. And these dragons would eventually become the 8 major gods upon the world. I can go over them. I can zoom in on the thing. Their symbols are given over here, which is in the middle, the branch of Helia, which is basically still now the planet itself. It is also known as the goddess of nature, but basically she mostly just watches out for the good of the planet, since she is the planet. Then in between these are lesser gods. I'll get to them later, but there is 7 major gods, which is first off Atiana, which is the goddess of order, of structure, of let me see if I wrote anything else, balance, things like that. Basically what this graph kind of here shows is how much of each, or how much the different gods were influenced by which kind of power. Atiana, of course, being the goddess of balance, has a big part, has been influenced a lot by the faith that the dragon long time ago consumed. On the other side, we have Vidar, which is the god of freedom, of liberty, which of course, as it says, consumed most of the chaos part of any of the gods, as he seeks freedom, which is the closest thing to chaos, really. more than any of the other ones. Then we have on the bottom here Nihasa, which is the goddess of death, of darkness, of dreams. And on the top we have Levia, which is the goddess of light, life and joy. All of these have their own lore, of course, where like how specifically they came to be, but this is the shortcut version of it. On the top we have the helping hand of Tamatis, which is the goddess of soul, of compassion, also the creator of souls, which is basically the manipulation of these different energies that are within the universe. Then we have Apoc, the god of time and anxiety, which is mostly the time part is an important part. Well, is a really important part within this world, basically allowing it to exist at all. And then lastly we have Uldar, which is the most literal representation of this chaos and faith. It is a two-faced god who basically just stands for these primal aspects and is kind of the personification of what is happening to basically all of the other things. He's the most balanced of all of them, also being on the bottom here. Yeah. Why the one time I say, oh, if anyone doesn't want spoilers, then like all my players watch. It's okay. What was I saying? Yeah, I'm gonna listen back to this later, making sure that I have everything for this. But basically that is how the gods were created in the beginning. I think I figured that out now. Then I think my Vidar lore is... Let me think if it has much to do with any of the other things that I need to talk about right now. Maybe not really. So, what's next? So we know how the world was created, we know how the gods were created, we know how the aspects of life came to be, we know why the gods, or most of them at least, have, like humans, a soul of both chaos and faith, which is important. We know why some of them lean towards the introduction of chaos, while others lean towards faith. We know why none of them want a control of chaos, since they know the chaotic parts within them wish to consume the planet itself. It's pretty good so far. You're such a weep, Phantom. What's next? In order to... So things happen with Vidar, which eventually destroys most of the dragons, which brings the gods to basically, well, become more of the very aspect that they are, less the material beings, although some of them still exist. The lesser gods is not that important lore, they just exist. Human lore or humanoids, let me see if my humanoid lore is life creation. What is it? The story of human creation. Nihasa's dream, get to the worst of the chaos. One day it was quiet among the gods. Nihasa's dream kept out the worst of the chaos from taking over Helia, and Helia herself, the nature and creatures of faith of its earth. Now, what was this about? I feel I wrote so much shit that I need to change after I make a change like this. Nihasa's dream kept out the worst of the chaos. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I remember. Well, basically, the world is kind of enveloped in what we would have like an ozone layer, which protects us from like sun rays, things like that. My world has a layer of dreams around it, which is basically a protection that Nihasa has put there to protect the world from the chaos that wishes to invade it. Use the chaos so and combine them with. The side effect of that, however, is that sometimes they still come through, and that chaos has sometimes an influence on things that are already dead, which are undead creatures. They would use the chaos souls overflowing the dream and combine them with Helia's faith souls to create a creature of balance, which makes sense. Basically, Nihasa reaping the souls as she does. Oh, I remember now. Yeah, it makes sense. So basically, before there were humans, Nihasa's job was just to reap the souls that were within her dream, within her layer around the earth. Since nobody died, there didn't really go any other souls there. However, chaos souls got into it from the outside, and she would reap them, destroy them, or send them back. And eventually, however, they found a use for them, which was they would use the chaos souls overflowing the dream and combine them with Helia's fate souls that she creates, or well, that just exists since she is a creature of pure fate, a planet. And together they created creatures of balance, immortal as it were in their image. They created a creature that basically works the same way they do, with a soul of both chaos and fate. However, to do this they would need help from Tamatis, and more importantly help from Apoc and Helia. Nihasa the powerful dragon. Nihasa the powerful dragon. She found a way to reap these souls of faith from animals and nature itself and put them in her dream. It is there that Tamatas could start the creation. She convinced Apoc to help her, and together they succeeded in containing chaos within a soul of faith. Now all that was needed was a vessel. Nihasa reaped the flesh of her skin and gifted life. So one day they may return to her to die. The humanoids came in all shapes and sizes, and all were given human souls. And basically Nihasa's she ripped the flesh of her skin and was destroyed. Basically, this is how Nihasa lost her dragon kind, basically, which ended up in the humanoids who came in all shapes and sizes. They prayed to all, and yet to Nihasa's surprise, they despised her. She was the one that gifted them life, and now she was the bane of their existence. Nihasa is not petty, but this pain did harden her. She grew less compassionate towards those who wished to extend their time, those who seek the freedom of chaos. If they would not respect her, the least she could do is make them respect the rules, sorry. And so it went on for many years. Nihasa creating the moon which would basically hurt any creature seeking too much freedom within her dream, until one day, yes, something else happened. Someone whispered to the humanoids about breaking out the chaos within them, so no longer must they be controlled. And the humanoids, unhappy in the unfairness of life, took his bait. Then other shit happened. I think this seems fine. There's another one I want to check, which is about death. What is it? There's soul creation, I think it's called. Soul, story of human creation. Mampus. Step-by-step explanation of soul absorption. No, that's not it. Souls. Sent to. Okay, this mixed into mostly humanoids. Since she's the creator of human life. Wait, I'm confused now. Did I write two different things in two different notes? See, this is why I need to fix it. Since Levia is the creator of human life. Is she? Wait, I think I have a human story of human creation. Humans. Or maybe just in her backstory. The guardian of humanoid life. She makes sure that life is good for those existing within it. She's the one taking the souls from Thanatos and putting them into the vessels of life to make humanoids. So basically she uses the flesh of Nihasa, which makes sense. Over Nihasa, what does it say here? Her duty to kill and destroy any. They have decided there is none left. It is up to the next souls to bring better things into the world. So the gifted, okay. And together they succeeded. Apoc and not Helia, Levia. I think I just mistyped here. Okay, so Nihasa, the powerful dragon she was, found a way to reap these souls of fate from animals and nature itself and put them in her dream. It is there that Thanatos could start the creation. She convinced Apoc to help her, and together they succeeded in containing chaos within a soul of fate. Now that all that was needed was a vessel, Nihasa reaped the flesh of her own skin and was destroyed and gifted life, so one day they may return to her to die. Levia formed this given flesh into creatures that may thrive under her light. Under her light, while they are able to live just like the plants and animals do. Humanoids came in all shapes and sizes, and they were all given human souls. Okay, I think this makes more sense. And then we go back to story of human creation. No, wait. Souls. 2 types of souls. Okay, so okay. Fuse the low on the corruption cases slowly started. These souls are okay. To maintain the balance of faith and chaos, Nihasa reaps the souls out of her dream plane, then sends them to Tamatis, where like an artist mixes the souls together to create humanoid souls. These souls are put into vessels and they are given a time by Apoc, and formed by Levia creates life itself. While faith and chaos souls also exist, they are manifested into nature by Elia, for the faith and pure powers of chaos that slip through Nihasa's dream manifest themselves into corruptions on the land, which are monsters in the world. Okay, I think we good. I think we good to go to the next step, which is what? Demigods are fine. I think we go to classes. I think that's a good idea. Let me just write them all over here. Doom, 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 doom. Here we go. So, what are the different classes that exist? We have let me just get a list. Can I just copy paste this? We have, well, should I add any? I guess I can. They have some abilities, so we have Barbarian. Wait, should I make these different text boxes? Probably. Barbarian. Bard. Dun, 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 dun. Is that just? That's. I never said that. That's just actually lying right now. I don't know why I'm being lazy. I don't know. Fine, I'll just write all of them. Also, can I get a better? Just get Bungie again. Bungie is the only good letter type anyway. Font, I mean, not letter type. That's weird. Okay, it's fine. We're fine. We're okay. We're doing great. Bard. Next up, Cleric. Next up, Druid. Next up, Fighter, which is probably, I don't know, I don't think I need to write anything special about it, but I don't know, I might as well write them down. Monk. Paladin. Ranger. Rogue. I don't have any more space, but it's fine, I'll just make it smaller. Sorcerer. What's next? Warlock. Wizard. I think it's good to write this down anyway so I can put it on my Discord, so it's clearer for people who wanna join what it means in my world. Okay. So let me just delete this. I think, yeah. Barbarian Bard, Cleric, Druid. Should I have made this in Excel instead of here? Probably. I think I could have done this a lot more efficient, but just don't worry about it. It will be okay. Also, this is definitely not lined up properly, but that's also okay. Just no problem. I feel like I really should have done this in Excel. I feel like I'm just making an Excel sheet right now. At least I can, I don't know. I can just make this more pretty later, okay? And just add a line. Is that a... that's a crooked line. It's not even a visible line. Black. Yes. Okay. Okay, we're doing great. What do you mean? It looks great, Phantom. I don't know what you're talking about. This line is definitely straight, and all of these words are definitely an equal amount of place from each other. See? It's perfect. So, what's a barbarian? Let's write it down in like really short terms. So normally it's a fierce warrior of primitive background who can enter a battle range. What I am interested in is where does it get the raging power from? And it has some spells as well, I think, which are based on strength. Constitution. I think so, at least. In battle you fight with primal ferocity. On your turn you can enter a rage as a bonus action. While raging you gain the following benefits. So you become stronger, and I think like yeah, you can choose like a primal path. So I think there's two options. Either I make this a magical effect, or I just say that all of these things are just based on like your character, unless like there's nothing really happening around your character while these effects are happening. I don't know. Is there any like crazy shit like you turn into an animal, or? I mean, I feel like there is probably. Barbarian primal paths. Wait, is there something called Chaos Burst? Primal Champion. Beasts. I feel like I should give this another... yeah, Spirit Shield and things like that. So like, I feel like these are magical effects which are summoned through strength. So I've thought before that basically every... well, that was for charisma though. This is an even different thing. I think I'm gonna skip Barbarian for now, go straight to Bard, which I think I figured out more. Alright, Barbarian later. Well, I'll think about it more later once I have everything else. Okay. An inspiring magician whose power echoes the music of creation. Yes. So in my world, what I wrote was... where is it? Willpower, like I own. Okay. God. So basically, I like the idea of charisma being a stat that describes basically unintentionally tapping into the powers of the universe, of the aspects that exist, which are the gods as well. So a bard taps into the aspect of what is it? Of art and inspiration, which would be, say, the goddess of art and inspiration. So a talented, charismatic individual who taps into the aspect, the universal aspect of art and inspiration, through which he can cast spells. A talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspects of art and inspiration, I can put in brackets, say, through which he can cast spells. Okay. And a cleric is the most straightforward one, like a charisma-based character, unintentionally or not, taps into the power of a god. A cleric is gifted godly powers. An individual who worships an aspect, god, in such high an individual who worships an aspect and has high enough wisdom to be heard and deemed worthy by a god to be gifted powers from said god. An individual who worships an aspect or god and has high enough wisdom to be heard and deemed worthy by a god to be gifted powers from said god. A druid. A druid is an individual as well. All of them are in fact individuals who taps into the essence of nature, which is Helia, and uses wild faith magic, the same magic used by Helia to create animals in nature, to form itself into animals in nature. However, this is not a parasitic. I think druids are also wisdom, right? Yeah. This is not a parasitic relationship. Helia gifts, or Helia allows them to use her nature if she deems them worthy. This is different from a Cleric of Helia in that clerics are gifted powers by Helia, and druids are allowed to use use the aspects of magic that are under her control. So, a druid is an individual who taps into the essence of nature, which is Helia, and uses wild faith magic, same magic used by Helia to create animals in nature, to form itself into animals in nature. However, this is not a parasitic relationship. Helia allows them to use her nature if she deems them worthy. This is different from a Cleric of Helia, in that clerics are gifted power by Helia, and druids are allowed to use the aspects of magic that are under her control. So it's not a one-to-one relationship in that fact. It's more like people who have respect for nature are allowed to use its gifts, basically. A fighter will be similar to a barbarian, I think. I'm sure there are some fighters that have some magical abilities, but I think maybe barbarians will lean a bit closer to like the essence of strength, maybe something like that. That is like, I don't know, I'll think about it still. What about monks? That's the same. A master of martial arts, harnessing the power of the body, pursuit of physical and spiritual perfection. I don't know, I don't know that much about monks. I feel like I need to think about it still. Blur as they reflect an income. Okay. Is there anyone in my chat right now who knows a lot about monks and can give me like a small recap? Whatever their discipline, monks are united in their ability to magically harness the energy that flows in their bodies. Whether channeled as a striking display of combat prowess or a subtler focus of defense ability and speed, this energy infuses all that a monk does. Okay, well, I think that's pretty straightforward then, that they seem to have the ability to control their own... Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So a monk... A monk is... Can this be smaller so I can actually type here? Would be very nice. A monk is as well an individual who uses his or her own soul, and just who uses their own soul to create magical effects. They can choose if they use their faith or chaos souls, divine or arcane, magic, to cast spells based on the character's backstory and player's preference. They use their faith or chaos soul, or a combination of both, to cast spells based on the character's backstory and player's preference. An individual who uses their own soul to create magical effects, they can choose if they use their faith or chaos soul, divine or arcane magic, or a combination of both to cast spell based on the character's backstory and player's preference. An important note, however, is that they can only use their own soul to cast these spells, since they have a unique, or have found a unique connection to it, which also makes sense for monks, because they are maybe like spiritual people who have full control over their bodies and basically full controls over their souls as well in that effect. Next up, Paladins, pretty easy. Let me make this all a bit smaller. Warlock, Wizard, Artificer. Okay. A Paladin is... where are we at? Paladin. A holy warrior bound to a sacred oath. So, a Paladin is... you could have guessed it. A Paladin is as well an individual who, like a cleric, but it uses strength and charisma, which is kind of interesting. I think that's cool. An individual who, like a cleric, is chosen by a god, however, not for his, or not for their not for their worthiness, or, well, kind of for their worthiness, not for their worship, but for their strength to represent an aspect. So they are given the freedom to tap into a god's power. That is why they must make an oath, since the god basically permits them to use his power in trade for service. That's why they must make an oath, since the god basically permits them to use their power in trade for service. An individual who, like a cleric, is chosen by a god, however not for their worship, but for their strength to represent an aspect. One thing... who like a cleric can be chosen by a god, however not for their worship, but for their strength to represent an aspect. They can also ask a god for powers in trade, for service, if the god deems them worthy to represent them. If either of these things happen, they are given the freedom to tap into the god's power. That is why they must make an oath, since the god basically permits them to use their power in trade. Like a cleric can be chosen by God, however, not for their worship, but for their strength to represent an aspect. They can also ask a god for powers in trade for service, if the god deems them worthy to represent them. If either of these things happen, they are given the freedom to tap into the god's power. This is why they must make an oath, since the god basically permits them to use their power in trade for service. However, the god does not directly give this power, like he would for a cleric. Instead, the paladin must prove his commitment and by the use of charisma, which makes sense. Basically, the harder you believe that you are still serving a god and you're not trying to betray, as long as you in your head believe that you're not trying to betray a god, you will be able to keep serving the god and keep growing in power. However, as soon as, say, you're serving Helia and secretly in your head you're thinking, oh, actually I want to destroy all the nature, then you will immediately lose all powers gifted by that god, since it is an oath that is made, and it is not only broken by actions, but by the very idea of you trying to break said oath. Nice. Next, Rangers. Rangers, I think, are similar to Druids. They even have similar powers. I think they also use wisdom, yeah. However, Rangers, I do not think they... They do use wisdom, though. Which does make it seem like it wouldn't really make sense. But would it though? And actually it would. Similar to a druid, rangers have the ability to tap into nature's power as long as they stay faithful to nature. Rangers are pretty easy. This is mostly a description of all the magic. Right? I think so far at least, yeah. Similar to a druid, rangers have the ability to tap into nature's power as long as they stay faithful to nature. Rogues. Do the rogues have any? I guess they can have. I think there needs to be like an essence of dexterity and an essence of strength as well, which are the barbarian and the rogue, and then in between we have the fighter. Let me think what that might be. You have these two main things, which are probably linked to God, which are not necessarily counteractive from each other. Wait, she said she's here to bully, but she hasn't even bullied me yet. Let me think. Let me see. Let me look at my gods. Who sent me something? Is this another scam? Yes. Top cryptocurrency giveaway? Wow. Is that even linked, or is that just linked to all the gods? Or is it linked to Helia as well? Let me think, what would be the essence of strength? I mean, I guess the most obvious answer is the essence of power, which is chaos as well. But let me write a sorcerer and stuff first. I think I'll have a better idea after I write all the chaos things. Okay, so I'll skip that for now. Sorcerer, here we go. So a sorcerer is an individual as well. A sorcerer is an individual who taps into the powers, or who or I guess I can just start it the same as the bard. A talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of of freedom, probably. Of freedom to manipulate the wild chaos souls. To manipulate wild chaos souls. A talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of freedom, which is Vidar, to manipulate wild chaos souls. I think that's all, really. They can use these souls, well, basically to they control these souls. I think sometimes one sentence is all that's needed. Similar to a bard, it's not that complicated. Or to a druid as well. I can write under it. Vidar does not care who uses his powers, since that is the very idea of freedom. Oh, sorry about that. Warlock is next. A Warlock is pretty interesting, I think. Again, a talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of what is the best way to say it? Belief, maybe that's the, or of how did I describe Saraban in my, basically what a warlock does is, if he believes something to be true, he can tap into the power of, what is a word to describe this? I feel like there should be a word for this. He taps into the universal aspect of, well, belief is not really true, it's more like I guess story is the best way to put it. Story and legend, which is Caraban, the many-faced god. If a story is true or not does not matter. All that matters, if a legend is true or not does not matter. All that matters is the belief of an individual in the legend and the power and or the power it might bring him. If one believes something to be true, he mostly subconsciously taps into the powers of Caraban, who on his turn make these on his turn make these powers come true. I feel like I should put an example after this, because it's kind of hard to understand. A talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of story and legend. Caraban, the many-faced god. If a legend is true or not does not matter. All that matters is the belief of an individual in the legend and or the power it might bring him. If one believes something to be true, he mostly subconsciously taps into the powers of Caraban. On his turn, makes these powers come true. Based on the legend that is believed in. Subconsciously taps into the power of Caraban. This requires I don't know, that doesn't seem right. Requires wait, what? I'm so confused. Requires? This is not how you spell. I refuse to believe this is how you spell requires. 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 Requires? Require. What? This makes no sense. This requires. This requires a great deal. It requires. How many times am I gonna say fucking require? It requires a great deal of charisma to channel such belief. On his turn, what? Subconsciously taps into the powers of Caravan, who on his turn makes these powers come true based on the legend that is believed in. I'll put like a star here and I'll put in a small example next to it. People want to zoom in just in like small letters. Just do like this is too small. It's fine. For example, say one believes the god, or one meets a very powerful fire elemental. One may try to worship this elemental in the hope to gain some of his powers. In game, it may seem that the elemental being gifts power to the player character, but in reality, what happens is through the Warlock's charisma, he may channel Caravan's power of legend and story to gain access to the powers of this being. None of the parties involved may notice that this happens, but I wished to tell the players anyway, to give more creative freedom for warlocks to worship anything they want and give unique and interesting powers to them. One important note is that the powers given always come at a cost, since the Warlock must believe the creature is powerful, and to gain access to his powers, he must give up something that is important to him. I don't know, I wrote the last part because it made sense. Did I just delete everything? What just happened? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Did I save? No. What? 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 I did. No. No, don't do that. What? Open recent files? This? What? Back? Oh. Why it has to give me a heart attack? Save. Help. Okay. It's okay. What do you mean I'm inventing a new gender? Okay, I'm angry. I swear, the word requires doesn't make any sense at all. Try to read that out loud. That just requires. I don't know. It's weird. What's next? It's okay. Don't panic. Everything's fine. Next up we have a wizard, who is also pretty straightforward. Why is... What happened here? Oh. Doom, 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 doom. Did it just... What? Why? Why do this to me? A talented individual who studies the aspects, or who studies the chaos in the world, who studies the wild chaos that is constantly present in the world. Not even wild. It can be caught as well, like in humans, the wild. Or not wild. Like mind control and stuff. Who studies... Ooh. A talented individual who studies the wild or not wild, like mind control and stuff, chaos that is constantly present in the world, both in souls, and in monsters, or just or other, both in souls and in monsters or other creatures, or I don't know how to write this. Who studies the wild chaos, or who studies... Let's just delete all this. Who studies the chaos that is constantly present in the world, both in wild forms, soul forms, and monster forms. He who studies the chaos, he manages to control this chaos through study and bind it to... They manage to control this chaos through study and bind it to their will so they may control it to cast spells. Similarly to how a cleric uses faith, divine magic to cast spells, a wizard uses chaos or arcane magic to do so. Okay, and then we have the Artificer in the bottom, so I kind of have to make this a bit bigger. I mean, I know I can make everything smaller as well, but it's fine. Where is this? Yeah, just there we go. And make this totally straight line a bit longer. And put the Artificer a bit more down here. Put the Wizard a bit more down here. Okay, Artificers are... is this right? Oh, there we go. Are as well talented individuals. Do Artificers use intelligence as well? Yeah. Talented individuals who do not who instead of studying magic, instead of studying how to control magic, learn how to make vessels that control it for them. To control chaos, learn how to make vessels that control talented individuals who, instead of studying how to control chaos, learn how to make vessels that control it for them. They may infuse, or they use specialized equipment to infuse items with these powers, which give them a wide range of spell-like abilities, of spell or infusion-like abilities. Talented individuals who, instead of studying how to control chaos, learn how to make vessels that control it for them. They use specialized equipment to infuse items with these powers, which give them a wide range of spell or infusion-like abilities. Okay, so now what do we have left? We have Rogue, Fighter, and Barbarian, who all also have some hints of magic to their class. Wait, let me move these things up a bit. But my idea was that they tap into like more primal aspects to get these powers, and I think there's two main things, which is the strength-based powers and the dexterity-based. For example, I'm sure rogues have some like subclasses that give them some like more magical-like effects, and I think barbarians as well have these things. I need to think. So the essence of strength, which is what? But I don't think, like, I would say it's just like, oh, it's just chaos and faith again, but it feels weird to say that dexterity is faith. I feel like dexterity is just another form of power as well. So I feel like both of these things are subclasses from some kind of power that they get from somewhere, which is power is originally, as I said before in the lore recap, a manifestation of chaos, which means they have to be grounded at least somewhere in chaotic magic as well, or arcane magic. However, they don't use... Wait, I think I just had a breakthrough. Yes, I think so at least. So we have the gods, and you have clerics who use divine magic to be given magic or to use faith directly. Then we have, on the other hand, wizards who use arcane magic to control chaos directly. Then we have then we have charismatic classes like bards and stuff who use the gods to cast who basically subconsciously steal powers from the gods to cast their spells based on their charismatic level. They all do this in their own way, like for example, the bard steal it from the goddess of inspiration, while the warlocks steal it from Caraban, Many-Faced God, etc. And then, lastly, we have the strength and dexterity based users who subconsciously steal powers from the chaos energy. However, what's the difference between the strength and the dexterity then? Is it just the same thing? Could be, just manifested in whatever abilities they are best at. I think that actually just makes sense. Like, I don't think there necessarily has to be two different powers they tap from, because you also have people who spec maybe into both dexterity and in strength. It's just the fighter needs to be both dexterous and strength, like that. Like the perfect fighter would have 18 strength and 18 dexterity. So yeah, I think that makes sense. And then it also makes sense why it's called, like, why barbarians are more like primal, because I mean chaos energy is more primal in general. So talented individual who taps into the universal power of chaos subconsciously, subconsciously, subconscious, 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 subconscious. Did I do it? Subconscious. I think I did it. Subconsciously. A talented individual who taps into the universal power of chaos subconsciously, using pure subconsciously by giving out an aura of power that draws in wild chaos. A talented individual who taps into the universal power of chaos subconsciously by giving out an aura of power that draws in wild chaos. Talented. Okay, I think that's the same for all three basically. They all just do it in their own ways, because power can manifest in many different ways, like a rogue or a fighter or a barbarian. I think I could maybe write some more things for each of them, because this is basically just about the magic so far. Like I didn't mention any of the skills of the non-magical people. But I feel like this gives a pretty good overview of all the different classes. At least magic-wise, and where they get their magic from. And it rewrites the lore from the 5e. It makes everything a bit clearer, hopefully, for new players who want to figure out how to make a character, or anything like that. Yeah, I'll go over it again and just read all of them. If anyone is watching and want to join the Discord, I'll put it there as well. I'll put the comment for Discord if anyone is interested in ever joining a game. I'm currently thinking about starting a new campaign as well, so feel free to join. Yep, first off, we have the Barbarian, who taps into the universal power of chaos subconsciously by giving out an aura of power that draws in this wild chaos. A Barbarian specifically does this in the most primal way out of all the fighter classes, being a character based on strength mostly. He basically is, well, the closest that you can get as a player character to becoming a creature of pure power, at least lore-wise. A bard is a talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of art and inspiration, which is the goddess Sei, through which he can cast his spells. He can do this both consciously, like maybe he just really likes the goddess and sings songs about her, and isn't necessarily in service to her like a cleric would be, but they have a mutual understanding, and they kind of just both like each other because of the songs that he plays, and he can be gifted spells through that, or unconsciously, subconsciously, as in maybe his music is just really good, and that basically channels that through his charisma. He channels the very aspect that the god embodies, which is this art and inspiration, and he can cast spells through that. Next up, we have a cleric, which is, I think, the most straightforward class. An individual who worships a specific god and has high enough wisdom to be heard and deemed worthy by a god to be gifted powers from said god. It is the most, except for a paladin maybe, it is the most like servant way of looking at things. It's more, I mean, it's the most like, I'm the servant and you're the god, and I'm a cleric and I'm gonna serve this god and try to do good for him and try to live by his or her or their ideas. Yeah, that's a cleric basically. I think it's pretty straightforward. Next up, we have a druid, who is an individual who taps into the essence of nature itself, which is the goddess Helia, and uses wild faith magic, which is the opposite of wild chaos magic. It is the same magic used by Helia to create the animals and nature, to form itself into these animals and nature. However, this is not a parasitic relationship. Helia allows them to use her nature if she deems them worthy. This is different from a cleric of Helia, in that clerics are gifted power by Helia and druids are allowed to use the aspects of magic that are under her control. So basically anyone who respects nature enough can eventually, through pure charismatic power, be gifted sorry, not through charismatic, through pure wisdom. Basically, wisdom implies that you have some kind of connection with a god, in which case, in this case, nature, and through this wisdom, they can cast their spells. However, say you have a druid who does not respect nature, then he will not be gifted any powers, of course. A fighter is similar to a barbarian, but more all-rounded. They also tap into the universal power of chaos subconsciously, by also becoming someone who just gives out an aura of pure power, which of course lures in the chaotic energy from the world. And I'm sure there are, I haven't really played a fighter myself, but I'm sure there are many spell-like effects that a fighter also has, especially later on or with certain subclasses, in which case they would also well, channel a certain amount of chaos energy just by the mere power that they possess. This can be visually present or not. This doesn't have to mean that you're like glowing with power at some point or something. It can just be something that's happening without you knowing, without any particle effects or anything like that. I think the fun thing about these powers of chaos and fate is that they can be represented in so many different ways that a character will never feel the same way. Like you can have a barbarian who channels this and another one who does the same thing, but they might look completely different because the chaos does not care how power is manifested. So basically you can choose what it looks like when your barbarian goes in a rage. If you want your character to go up in flames as you charge at your enemy, maybe that's how you express your power as a barbarian, and how this well, chaotic power reads your mind to, or not reads your mind, but is basically present within you. Or you can just be a normal guy with a sword and maybe there's nothing present, or maybe, I don't know, you're like a I don't know, a million different things that can look like that. It doesn't have to look evil, it doesn't have to look bad. Both of these powers as well, it's not like chaos is bad and fate is good. These are just universal powers that are present basically everywhere in the world, and some of them might become bad things, but it doesn't mean that the power itself is bad or might be used for bad things. But yeah, where was I? Druid, fighter, yeah. Then we have a monk, who I think after this is finally, like, I never really understood a monk, and I think after today's session I finally can give them a pretty interesting and fun place in the universe, and I'm actually excited to see people play them now. They are an individual who uses their own soul to create magical effects. So basically how a soul works is each human, just like the universe, has a balance of both faith and chaos within themselves, but most people don't know this, or well, are basically not in control of it at all, while monks, just like a monk would in real life, have a full understanding of their body, and basically in my world things like karma and stuff are manifested in this understanding of a soul, which is basically the ability to both to control the soul within yourself, which is to control the faith and the chaos within yourself, which you can totally choose as well. Again, this can manifest itself in 1,000 different ways, but you can even choose if you want this to manifest more in like faith like powers, which are more like divine powers, or arcane like powers, which are or sorry, chaos like powers, which are more arcane like abilities. So if you want to be like a healer or more damage dealer, this can like manifest in 1,000 different ways. It's all up to you, really. Then we have a paladin, who is an individual who, like a cleric, can be chosen by God, however not for their worship, but for their strength to represent an aspect of the god. They can also ask a god for powers in trade for service if the god deems them worthy to represent them. If either of these things happen, they are given the freedom to tap into the god's power. That is why they must make an oath, since the god basically permits them to use their power in trade for service. However, the god does not directly give this power like he would for a cleric. Instead, the paladin must prove his commitment by the use of charisma. Basically, yeah, I mean, I think basically that's it. A ranger is similar to a druid, really similar actually. I think it's just on a smaller scale, since they have a lot of fighter-like abilities as well. I don't know if rangers get any special skills. They might also tap into the very power of chaos, to just the manifestation of power, the aspect of power of the universe. But I'm not sure about all the ranger abilities that exist. That can also be the case. But anyway, they have some spells as well, in which case they are also gifted by the aspect of nature, or gifted is a strong word, they're more like there's a mutual bond between nature and the ranger, in which Helia basically allows anyone who has a high enough wisdom, which is an understanding or a connection to the nature, to be able to control it in a similar way that she can, which is the control of wild faith magic, which is just present all over the world, really. Yeah. Then we have a rogue, who is very similar to a fighter, but the manifestation of power or chaos within a rogue, or the manifestation of power that a rogue puts out is of course different of that of a fighter. It is more subtle, and of course the chaos that is drawn through it might express itself in a totally different way as well. For abilities like, I don't know, Pass Without a Trace. I don't know if that's an ability that a rogue has, but I'm sure rogues have a million different slightly magical effects as well, which are represented in this idea of basically power slowly accumulating towards creatures who grow more powerful, who have more physical abilities. They will slowly accumulate just subconsciously these draws of chaos or power as well. A sorcerer is a talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of freedom, which is Vidar, to manipulate wild chaos souls. Vidar does not care who uses his power, since that is the very idea of freedom. So yeah, pretty straightforward, similar to a bard. Yeah, not much to be said about that. Basically, they just have an inner talent for recognizing and using these wild chaos souls that are present all over the world. And instead of a wizard who has to learn to control these, they just have a knack for it, which is the charisma. But of course it is a lot more dangerous and wild, which represents itself in things like wild magic. A warlock is a talented, charismatic individual who taps into the universal aspect of story and legend, which is really cool. I think it is, of course, the god Caraban, who is the many-faced god. If a legend is true or not does not matter. All that matters is the belief of an individual in the legend and or power and or history and or creature it might bring him. If one believes something to be true, he mostly, subconsciously, taps into the power of Caraban. It requires a great deal of charisma to channel such belief, who on his turn makes these powers come true based on the legend that is believed in. Caraban as well does this mostly subconsciously or does not care. That is not really known of. Caraban is one of the most non-humanoid like god of them all, since he is more of a literal representation of history, which I think is also interesting, playing with this idea of warlocks, where history is also so easily changed over time that it is never really certain. So it doesn't really matter if a warlock believes an eldritch creature to exist in legend and he's really scared of it, or he thinks the world will cease to exist unless he worships it, or he saw I don't know, maybe another warlock or another creature use a power similar to that of that creature, then he can choose to worship it, in which case it will just subconsciously give him powers based, at least if he has a high enough charisma to channel enough belief within him, which will basically be what's happening mechanically. Is the warlock is channeling the powers of a god to receive powers from another creature, basically. And Caraban allows this, since his very aspect is this aspect of legend and history and well, it only helps for its creation. So yeah, it's a bit vague, but I think it gets pretty clear pretty quickly. A wizard is a talented individual who studies the chaos that is constantly present in the world, both in wild forms, soul forms, and monster forms. They manage to control this chaos through study and bind it to their will so they may control it to cast spells. Similarly to how a cleric uses fate or divine magic to cast spells, a wizard uses chaos or arcane magic to do so. Again, pretty straightforward. An artificer also pretty straightforward, does basically the same thing, but he can, instead of instead of learning how to control this chaos, he learns how to make vessels that do that for him, which he can use to well, basically cast spells or infusions or anything like that. Okay, I think that's it. Oh, we did it. Put this in world. I think that's it for today. Unless Phantom wanted to. Wait, let's see. Just asking Phantom. I don't know if there's anyone in the chat still, but if anyone has a question, feel free to ask. I think there's only 3 people watching, so I don't think anyone is gonna have any questions. But I think I'll try to do more pure story lore like streams instead of like talking more mechanical things. I feel like probably that's more interesting, where I kind of figure out the bits and pieces maybe before the stream, and then I start the stream and just tell a story. Maybe that's more interesting for people who are watching, but I'll see. Yeah, I think at least I'm done now, unless Phantom... No. Yeah, unless Phantom answers, but I think I'm kinda tired as well, so I don't know if I want to do a whole other session now. I might just do it tomorrow. Or another day, really. Yeah, okay. So for that, thanks for watching. Anyone who did, I feel like 3 viewers are myself and then a bot or something, but if anyone is still here, thank you for listening. I saw some people joined earlier, they left again, but that's okay. I think it wasn't that interesting to listen to, since as I said, I did mostly mechanical things, so that's fine. Okay, I'm done. Goodbye. I said goodbye.